Well, hello there. Welcome back to bringing Hexy back on Small Dungeon, the show where we draw maps for your D&D campaigns for you to use completely free. I've got a couple of things to say before I start today. First of all, big thank you to Derek Burge, who decided to be my first patron, which was a real shocker after the last video. Decided to bob me over a book, which I'm very grateful for. Thank you. It's nice to know that what I'm doing is being received. I suppose I really wasn't expecting it, so thank you very much. And today, last time we started a map that I'd like fleshed out a bit in a test video, which I think is available to watch here on Twitch. But this time we're going to go all the way back to the start and show the entire process from the beginning. So let's crack on, I suppose. Hey? So standard. I'm using Adobe Photoshop CS6. All of the Adobes. You could use GIMP. It's a nice free alternative. A lot of the features are the same. I personally have never used it, but I'm told it's just as good. So I think a lot of the steps are very similar. It's just getting used to a different UI. So if you do use GIMP, you should probably be able to follow along. So yeah, let's dive right in. I'm gonna open a new clipboard. I'm gonna go 300 pixels per inch. I normally do because it's nice to know that everything you produce is printable. Let's see. Let's go for a square. I mean, we're going to hex this up in the end, so 1080 by 1080 seems good. So to start with, I'm just going to drop in a nice like brownie beige background, something to work off, and I'm going to add a few layers on top to try and create a parchmenty type texture, so that it looks like we're drawing on old. It looks like a map printed on paper, on old paper. To do that, let's get a nice contrasting, but still light brown. And let's see what clouds will do for us. If we filter render clouds, yeah, that might be a bit light, but we can work from that. So that's already given us like a few shadowy areas, and on top of that, I'm just going to add a nice light layer. Yeah. And if I take a nice grungy brush here, if you look at this, so normally this brush is like a paint splat. What colour am I on? Don't want to do that. What are you doing to me? Okay. There we go. So that's the shape of the brush. And by adding some shape dynamics, a little bit of size jitter, and then some scattering, and we've already got angle jitter in there. It's probably a bit much scattering. Nice and you can just create this like really grungy brush that, if I go back to 2 different shades of brown and then allow the colours to jitter back and forth, probably don't want any of that. Try and go for a bit more contrast. So now we've got this delightful texture on the paper. So I'm going to go ahead and group that as my background. Colours are important. Keep track of your layers. Right now, so just bear with me a sec. Delightful. So now we're going to add a very light layer. We don't need to do that yet actually. Let's just get a nice round brush. Turn that off. We don't need to mess with opacity or anything. We're just going to do a sketch. I haven't really decided what we're doing yet, so this should be fun. How about we have had the idea of doing like a nice trail up to just the edge of a city. So if we assume there's a city up here, some nice city gates, and we love a forest, so oh yeah, lovely. And then what about a nice cliff face? So quite simple map. So we're just doing this last trail up to the city. There's a sheer drop here, so we've built a city sort of at the edge of a forest and at the top of a cliff, maybe looking down. Maybe the sea's over there somewhere, who knows. And then we're just going to have a path up the centre, and we'll just litter that with a few shanty buildings, just to give a little bit of something on the lead up to the, maybe the gates close at night. Maybe the adventurers, your party arrives late at night and they're forced to take shelter in an inn outside the city gates where the ruffians hang out. So we'll try to include some of that. If we drop this down, we don't really need to be able to see it. It's just giving us a guide for what we're going for. This is very basic. I mean, it works, so sure. So the next step is to start lining out the forest. Let's use our words. Sketch. Okay. Oh, help. So on this layer I'm just going to start outlining the forest. So I'm going to get in nice and close, drop my brush to about exactly 5 pixels. I'm just going to start real simple, just create that nice cloudy kind of edge to represent the unnatural wildness of the trees. So the wilderness, the wildiness, the 1v1 fight me wildy, PvP wilderiness of these trees. Doesn't need to be exact. The very nature of what we're drawing requires it to be. if you can hear the audio track that is being provided by Skyrim in the background, it's alright. It sounded like you were killing a horse though, which might be upsetting for. Well, then the net is that a horse is dead, and some people might not like that. You know. So, the purpose of this, you might be thinking, what is all this about? I'm slowly building, when this map's done, I'm going to take a hex chunk of it. The map itself and all the assets will get uploaded to my Patreon, which is like here somewhere. Fucking yeah. Completely free. You don't need to pledge or anything. You can just download all that for free to use in your campaigns, which I would love you to do. If you do, also here, a little bit higher, is my Instagram. If you post an image on there of you using the maps, that would make me so happy. I'd love to see like some evidence of someone using the maps in their own game. That'd be cool. But we're going to take a hex out of this map, and it's going into like a file. At some point when we've got enough hexes, we're going to start building like a regional map. So once we've got a few villages and a few cities and things, we're going to position them on a map, and then we can sketch out what the rest of the maps to look like. And slowly but surely we'll build one hex at a time. We will bring Hexy back and have built a scalable map that you can use in your games for each hex on the map. So your party can travel through, and no matter where they fall on the map, you'll be able to print out a sheet with a map on of that area for your games. That is the plan. Anyone watching will be able to, as we go through, whenever we create a new city or a new village, you'll get the opportunity to name places on the map. If that's the sort of thing you're into. Okay. So it's a pretty neat forest edge. I'm just gonna add like a couple of breaks in the canopy. And then let's just drop that to 60%. Cool. And then similarly, I'm going to use a smaller brush to just start filling in the edge of this cliff edge. Different technique here. The cliff edge is not going to be continuous. There's going to be overlapping areas and broken edges and things, just to really show off the sharpness of the top of the ridge. This sort of jagged, overlapping, jutting in places. Ooh, that jut. This guy knows his cliff edges. Delightful. So, just more of this freehand. Goodness. I feel like we should put something at the bottom of this ridge, but I'm not sure what. Sure what yet. The easy answer is water. I mean, just naturally most rock faces have been carved by water, so it would make sense to have a river. But I'm open to suggestions. There we go. So that's our cliff edge. I'm not fully decided what we're doing with this wall yet, so I'm just going to leave that. Simple. And thought I'd hecked up then. We're all good. So I'm just going to call this outlines. And then I'm going to add the outline of this path here. To do that, I'm going to create an overlay layer, and I'm going to use a light brush. I'm probably going to about 10 pixels. I'm going to let the pen pressure do a bit of work here. That is not my light brush. That is my dark brush. For those of you following at home. So I'm just going to add this nice winding, meandering path up to the city. There you go. Simple. I might change this later, but I feel like that's a little light. So there we go. So I'm going to add some detail to this cliff now. Get back on my outlines. With a normal brush. Let's get back down to 3. Start doing some of the nitty gritty. Just bear me a sec. I'm actually going to go get a drink. Ooh, water. Sure, I mean that's in the way of the screen, but we can live. There ends up being a little patch in the corner of the map that's not done. It's because of my glass of water. But you know what? That is a sacrifice I'm willing to make. So I'm just going to add a few more lines to this cliff edge. I'm going to try and make them more compact towards this top edge, and then let them get more spread out towards the bottom, and that'll allow the impression of that'll allow the impression of an incline, because your eyes get drawn up to the closer together lines. Yeah, it implies a greater distance travelled. So it'll just make the top of the ridge look steeper than the bottom. So just got a few like sharp lines up here. A few nice tight ones here. because it gets extra steep. Lovely stuff. Yeah. It's possible to overdo this, so just gotta be wary of your lines. So here, just line's getting a little further away from the peak now. Maybe not here. Maybe there's an extra steep area. And then just really hammer the nail home with an outlying line. Sorry, I'm drinking sparkling water. So if you look at that now, you'll notice that your eye will naturally form like a steeper edge towards the top end. And once we start adding shadow to that as well, it'll just really highlight. That's my Hackerman. Sorry, just look at this. Oh, just a little bit of a panic. Why are you saying I'm offline while simultaneously saying I'm online? Twitch is a real strange one. I mean, it looks good. Let's try it again. The old Control F5. Yeah, I mean... Sure, I'm live. Whatever. Okay. So back to the forest. Now I've added the detail to the cliff edge. So now we're going to do the same for the forest. And this is real simple. Just going to add some nice. He says simple. He says. Add some curved lines, just to represent the edges of the tree canopies. And we'll add a couple of these little seagulls as well. You know, the classic seagull. we'll try and add, should have been doing, just try and add like larger sweeping curves the further in we go, to represent the larger trees in the centre of the forest. Oh yeah, one thing I was supposed to say was sorry about yesterday. This stream is supposed to be Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock, but England were doing a soccer and I had to go to the pub and watch it, and I'm glad I did, because I watched England win a penalty shootout for the first time ever, which was incredible. So now basically we're going to win the World Cup. We are. It's coming home. She knows. It's coming home and there is nothing you can do about it, and I'm going to be so drunk for like a month. There we go. So now we've got a little bit of detail on the canopies. And now, that's fine. I really shouldn't have done that on the outlines layer. More fool me. It should have been more sensible, but there we go. This is how we learn, and we should always be naming our layers and colour coding them, because that's what I do. Right. So now I'm just going to block shade the forest. And to do that, how do I do that? Wouldn't you like to know? We're going to add an overlay layer. Set the opacity to not 5%. As that misclick would suggest, 50%. And then I'm going to get a nice dark brush. Set the opacity to 5%. A nice sensible size. And I'm just gonna go to town on the forest. Just real. I'm allowing the pen sensitivity to do a lot of work here. Just really darkening up the deeper parts of the forest. At this point we're just colouring in, which, you know, I haven't done for, well, I have, but you might not have done for a long time, and it's quite therapeutic. Kids really got their stuff together. They know what's good, and one thing that's good is colouring in. You just can't go wrong, especially like this, because going outside of the lines really doesn't matter that much. I'm trying not to, but I'm not going to beat myself up about it if I do. At some stage we're going to add a shadow provided by the forest outside of the forest boundaries. So this is just going to any little forays into the outside of the forest are just going to amplify that foresty shadow. Oh, hello. That cat has definitely brought an animal back. Has she? No. She's arrived though. She is here. Hello, Bella. If you're lucky, momentarily a cat is gonna come and harass me, and then you'll get to meet one of my cats. If you're unlucky, you won't. So, that's the lottery we're playing here. So, right, just nearly finished with the shadow now. Just want to add one more dark pass of the deeper areas. Yeah, that's looking nice. I think this is maybe a touch light, so I'm just going to change the opacity of the layer itself, just to. Yeah, maybe should have just. That looks fine, to be honest. It's not too bad. And the cat's gone upstairs. I'm sorry. She's a free spirit. I also didn't pay any attention to her, so that might be my own doing. She doesn't perform for nothing. Okay. That is fine. I'm kind of okay with that. So, on top of this, I'm going to add another opacity layer. I do apologise. Sure, okay. So that's our wrist shadow. Love it. So we're gonna add another opacity overlay layer with a low 50% opacity, and we're gonna drop this to 20. And I'm just gonna start darkening up the. Let's get that so I can see what I'm doing. Just darkening up the cliff edge here. I want to make it nice and dark at the top, and then bring that down. Make it a little lighter at the bottom. So it's just hammering the. Yeah. Lovely, lovely. And then we'll add a small amount of highlights as well to the top, because where there is darkness, there will also be. I don't know what I'm saying. Sometimes you just gotta let that inner voice come out, even if he's gonna say something weird. I mean, it's not incorrect, but strange nonetheless. So I'm using the flow here to let the brush pressure control the opacity a touch. So I can just allow myself to put a little less pressure on to create a lighter shadow on the bottom. And then towards the top, just dig in a little, dig those heels in, and really, really drop a shadow. And don't worry about patches. If you've got any, patches are alright. It's just going to make it look a little bit more natural. This should blend in quite well. Once we add some colour, I mean, this is good. I like it. I like it. Okay, so we've got the basic shadow there, which I think we're about there. So now I'm going to bring back one of these brushes. If you remember this bad boy. And just bring out the controls here so we don't want any of that. So we're going to add some shape dynamics, largely angle jitter and scattering, to just create like a sporadic brush that's gonna add like a texture to our shadow. I'm just gonna do a couple of passes with this just to blend it all together. Just adds a little random element to the shadow, which really helps to blend. I'm also going to extend out past our cliff a little bit. Great. And with the eraser, just neaten up a few of these edges where I've been overly sporadic. Let's be fair. Just a quick reminder that this map and others like it, when I'm finished, will be available to download for free from my Patreon, which is over here somewhere. What's she doing? The cat's going mad. Yeah, like they're all there for free. They don't require any kind of pledge or anything. You don't need to join up. You literally just download the maps, use them as and when you want them. If you do use them, I'd love you to take a picture and post it to my Instagram, which is also over here somewhere. I'd really like to see people using them. If in a game setting, that's the dream. Any feedback on Patreon as well is warmly accepted. So it's a great place for you to let me know if there's anything specific you want to see in a map coming forward. Obviously, once I've done a few of these hexes and we've started to build a regional map, like a world map, I'm going to want a lot of feedback from viewers to see what kind of features they want to see on the map, like what kind of natural features, and what kind of, if you've got any strange ideas for like a town or a city or anything that you'd like to see, if it's something you're already using in a campaign and you want me to pop something in so that you can tie this map into a campaign you're already running, then that's something that I'd be more than happy to work with you on. So there we go. Look at that. So we've now got like this nice deep shadow at the top of the cliff that evens out at the bottom. And I'm going to do a similar thing here in the forest. Sorry, before I do that, I'll just go back to here, and I'll just, with a very small brush, just add a few. Ooh, was a little rambunctious. So was that. Let's bring the scattering in a bit. This is all stuff that, once you've used a few of these techniques a couple of times, that you sort of get a feel for. Just add a few cheeky highlights to the top of the cliff, just to make the shadows really stand out. And there you go. And then I'm just gonna add a small pass down here, just so we know we're out of the shadows. We're out of the shadow zone. So now I'm going to use both of these colours in the forest to really bring out some of the shapes of the trees. So I think with the cliff being there, I think we've decided that our light's coming in from up in the northeast. Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm going to try and really apply shadow to the southwest of the forest. So I've got my dark layer, my dark colour. What I am going to do is bring a little bit of that scatter back. She has brought an animal. I knew it. I told you. She's unstoppable. An unstoppable huntress. So yeah, just really shadowing out these areas.
She's catching moths.
What's she doing? She's outside again. So, just really quickly hitting the bottom left, just making sure we've got more shadow there than anywhere else, and then let's just create a few shapes in here, a few little tendrils of shadow that just represent higher points in the forest line and how they tie in with the rest of the trees. And then with a smaller brush, just really drill in. To a few key zones, just to I like it. Okay, so now I'm going to take the lighter colour and just amplify these shadows by adding a highlight. Just add a highlight around these areas. So you see how the highlight and the shadow balance each other out and just create a nice effect where we look like we've got these raised areas that are just catching more light, and then these darker areas that are just not catching as much light, I guess. And just want to shade out these areas a little more on the deeper forest shadow, just to eliminate a little this pink that's coming through from the. You're not going to see that very soon, but it's just annoying me. So it fights what we're trying to see. And then if I go back and just try and lightly blend in a few more of these highlights. Lovely. So the next step from here is to start adding colour. So to do that, I'm going to add another layer. I'm going to add a colour layer. What am I doing? Colour without a U. Here we go. A nice coloury boy. And I'm going to block in this forest with a couple of greens. So I'm going to use the same brush, but I'm going to add a little bit of colour dynamics, just to allow the background and foreground to toy with each other a little. So I'm just going to block in this forest to start with. And this is fine. We can be rough with this to begin with. We've always got the option later on to go back with an eraser and just mark out the outlines again. Just catch anything that's left the lines. This isn't as difficult as a colouring book when you're a kid. We all know you can't undo crayon. We've all learnt the hard way. There we go. So you can see the green starting to I like it. Now this colour layer over the shadow is just really starting to do work. It's all just starting to come together quite nicely to give us a nice lively forest roof, because I've said canopy one too many times today. Really worried about this little spit here not getting any love. That's better. So a little bit more blue. Getting these two colours alternating is just allows that little bit more depth of colour. So instead of just being a flat, we're starting to blend the two together in places. There we go. But as you can see closely, we're still not losing the effect of the paper. We're still not losing that paper colour coming through on the underside. So it really does look like this map has been drawn on some old parchment. for the benefit of your adventurers. One thing I am going to do quickly is just drop this to 10 and just add a very light green over the entirety of the map. Oh, I'm doing this on shadow. What have I done? This is why we don't change layers. Bear with me. I done messed up. Sure. This is how we learn. Let's bring that all back. So essentially what I was doing then was drawing colour onto this shadow layer, which the colour is irrelevant. But the alternating colours on the brush were still allowing the shade of the colour above to change, if that makes sense to you. Which is why I didn't notice. But I'm still an idiot. Let's not forget. Alright, so let's try that again, shall we? Just going to add a light green over the whole of the map, because that'll just tie it all together somewhat. So for the cliff, I think we can lose this sketch now because it's messing with my shadows. For this cliff, I'm not sure what colour to do yet. I'm going to try and find like a nice blue-grey. With a quite low. That's mixing too much with the green. How about let's go a little purple. Idiot. Cool. So I'm gonna do that still. But we're going to open the brush up and we're going to turn this off, because that's why it's coming through as green, because the green layer is still, the green colour is still coming through. I think that's going to be good. So again, I'm just going to apply the colour more deeply to the top of this ridge, and then allow that colour to fade away as it slopes out the bottom, and that'll just play into the shade quite nicely. And I might go under, looking at this grey now, I might go under onto the shadow again and just have another pass with a darker colour, just to fight the white that's coming through on this grey, just to bring the darkness back to the top of the cliff. Because at the moment it's looking a little not dark, or light, which is the opposite of dark. See, we really have it all at Small Dungeon. We're helpful and educational. So that colour's fine. I'm just going to do a very light pass to the bottom of there. Maybe this is a quarry, you know? Maybe this is a quarry. Maybe the town was built here as a means of mining stone. Or something more precious, maybe. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to this shadow and do what I just said. Just get this darker colour again. And just, yeah, hammer in a little bit at the top. The beauty of drawing like this and using these layers is that it really gives you this freedom to go back and edit. You know, it's not like painting. It's not like painting onto a canvas where once you've gone over an area a few times, it becomes very difficult to work with. You can just go into shadows and change your shadows. And you can do that after you've applied colour over the top. It really allows a lot of room for error. And as long as you develop the skills to notice these things, there's like no end to the amount of editing you can do. Speaking of which, I did this last time. Save your files, goddamn. Goddamn. Save this map. Hexy 2. We haven't got a name for it yet. So yeah, that's looking a little better. I'm just going to fight for the bottom of these cliffs a little with the highlight. Sorry, I think I might be coming down one of them summer colds. So yeah, I think that's fine. I think we're good there. For the sake of time, that's our cliff. I'm just going to go onto the colour here and just neaten up some of this green here. Where I done coloured outside the box. This might be a little extreme. Let's drop that way down. Yeah. It's just a little too obvious that I've coloured like an Egypt. Sensible stuff. I'm also going to get these blanks in the canopy as well. Once I've done this, just to separate them from the trees, and then we'll look at adding a light shadow for the whole forest. We decided that the sun was coming in from the northeast, so we're just going to add a shadow to the entire southwest of the forest. That's better. Let's get in here. Turn this up a touch. Yeah. And just like that, we're colouring in. We're colouring in again. There we go. Sure. And I'm just going to do some bits here as well, because I still think there's more to do in this forest. Look at the skies, too. Look at the sky. Yeah. Oh yes. Oh. Nice. Yeah. Yes. Yes. I'm not. What am I doing here? Oh, what a knobber. There we go. Let's just go for these shadows just one more time. Yeah, it's just really darken up the deeper parts of the forest. Perfect. I like it. So if we create one more, don't do that. If we create one more overlay layer here, and we'll leave that at 100% and get a nice round brush. We're not doing anything tricky here. We're just gonna outline. In fact, let's use our noggins, shall we? And on this outlines. Perfect. So if we select the inverse of that, then we can shadow Erafina's the fire. This would be a classic ambush spot. You're giving me ideas, don't you think? So if the city's up the top here, and this is your last little patch of ground before the city, your party are potentially not even thinking about the fact that they might be about to be ambushed from these here woods. You can catch them very unawares, which is what we like. There's nothing like being a vengeful DM. So selecting the inside of this forest and then selecting the inverse is just allowing me to very quickly create this shadow without any fear of running into the forest and adding a shadow where I don't want it. The question is, do we get to name this city? Or do we name the city when we draw the city? That's the important question. So, let's just get rid of that. So, how do we feel about this shadow? I just... Oh, have I just done that on the water? What a lunatic. But this is how we learn. One other trick we can do here, since I just messed that up, is we can select this area again. And just shadow it all. That's crazy. I know it's crazy. But then we can drop like a drop shadow, but only good, right? That seems about right. And then if we go back onto our outlines, we'll have to include all this nonsense. Sure. God. We don't want to select that. That's there for a reason. We don't want to select that because that's there for a reason. We should be able to just boom. Oh, whoa, whoa. God, pay attention. There we go. Now we have a drop shadow that doesn't suck. To be darker, possibly. Drop shadow that doesn't suck. I can delete that. So now that's included our shadow in here as well. Look. Brilliant. I'm still unsure about these inner forest shadows, you know. I just think there's so much more we can do. There's another cheat. Yeah, sure. Never seen that before in my life, but there we go. This is better. Getting real shady now. And then just very lightly, just a couple more highlight passes. Hey, nay too shabby. Near too shabby. Got it. Good. And we'll do the same here because we really want to see some depth to this quarry. Now that we've that's another thing that you sort of begin to pick up. Looking at lighting globally. Now that we've darkened up the forest, like, we really need to do something about this quarry as well, because it's just not on the same level. I might go over the darker areas with a darker grey as well in the colour layer, which will probably help, because we've chosen a very light colour. And I say we, I have. It's all my fault. So that's not too bad. It does require me to do this again. That is far too light for a highlight. Delightful. Okay, so I'm gonna have to sort out this. And just remove these nice and quickly. So, I'm curious to know what people would like to see next week. Doesn't have to be now. It can be if you watch this. If you're watching this and it's not live, feel free to send me a message on Instagram or leave a comment on the Patreon. Let me know what sort of things you want to see in the upcoming videos. We've got a whole region to do, so any ideas are welcome. And as I said, I'm more than happy to try and work something in that would help your guys' campaigns. If there's something you already have going on in your campaign, and you'd like this region to match that, then something I'm happy to do. Right, here we go. So I'm just going to add another darker colour to this. To this cliff now. Just to... Ooh, we're still on the eraser. What a guy. Sure, yeah. Still seems quite light. So back on the shadow layer, that's why. I really wish Photoshop wouldn't do that. it's coming across very light. And I'm not sure why. Let's have a look. Don't want that. Sure. Strange. Bureau de Strange. What am I doing? Weird. Okay. Definitely don't want to be that dark. Okay. All right. Let's do it. I think this is fine, yeah. Just darken up this top. This cliff top. There we go. And then I might add, the whole thing's quite light, so we're just gonna add a layer on top. That's why. Yeah. There we go. Just to darken the whole map up a little bit. And we're gonna add some more green. To this, to the open area. Let's get that foreground and background jitter back. Bit bold. Cool. And I'm going to add a little, just a wee small amount of do this on a new layer just to make sure I don't mess things up. Just going to add a little bit of sporadic shading to the There we go. So now the main thing I want to do is just add a few buildings, which is very quick. It's very quick to do. Have I saved the brush? Because I never seem to. I have. Okay, so if you don't know how to do this already, very simple. I made this brush by just creating a new layer and then just filling a square. Okay, and if it's make that your only visible layer, and then define a brush preset, and that's what this is. It's just a brush that's just a square, but it's more than that. It's so much more, because if we add some spacing, a little bit of size jitter, don't want any angle jitter, and that size jitter might be alright. There we go, and a small amount of scatter. What we've got now is a brush for buildings. So there we go. If I drop the brush here and shift click to do a straight line with the brush, it just creates this sporadic pattern using the squares, and not that either. Sorry, just trying to get a It's very easy to use once you've... There you go. A little bit more scattering, I think. There we go. So now it's as simple as dropping some buildings. Let's... Oh, it's a little rough. Better. So if we had a small amount of buildings here, we've created a small settlement here outside the city, and that's a perfect place for your adventuring party to stop on their way in. Can add a little tavern in, force them to stay overnight. Maybe have the tavern ambush from the woods here, and we're in business. So I'm just going to add a layer over the top of these buildings, and just give the colour a bit of scene to them. There you go. We don't need much fill on that, just to give a little bit of texture to the buildings. And we don't mind a small drop shadow. Not normally a fan, but at times. We don't want any size, just a small amount of distance. buildings. So I think we're rounding off map 2 here. It's we're still a little ways off. Still a little ways off the quality where we want to be, but I'm trying to make these videos fast as well as you know, usable. So just trying to find that balance of like a quality result and a fast result. The age old dilemma. But here we've got a perfectly serviceable map, and we got there in an hour and a half. So I'm pretty pleased with that. Hopefully, as we go through, I'll get faster, I suppose. I can upload some more maps that I've made in my own time that have taken me a little bit longer, that are a little bit better. I can put them on the Patreon, so you've got something of a higher standard to work with. But really, that's what we're aiming for. With a little bit more practice, hopefully I'll be able to start knocking out a better quality map in the same amount of time. But you know, this is perfectly serviceable. It's definitely more eye-catching than a scribble on a piece of paper if you want to use it in a game of D&D. If you want to hand this to your players, I'm sure they won't be disappointed with it. So yeah, I'm going to hex this up. I'm probably just going to find did I just save it as test? Was it still test map? Yeah, okay. So if I duplicate, oh shit, if I duplicate this into Hexy 2, and drop all of this into a group, and then add a mask to the group, and then sure, whatever you just said, Photoshop. I'm sure you're correct. Bang. Hex number 2. We've uncovered a little bit of a problem with working in the edges, haven't we? That's the working in the edges of the file. We've made it difficult to get the details into the. Why are you doing me like this? Made it difficult to get the details of the map in. Well, sure. No one said we had to go north to south, right? Nobody ever said that. So let's create our first lateral hex. Right? Go team Hexy. There we go. So this will be on Patreon, which is here tonight for you to download for free. I'll upload like the hex and the full map and some other files. I've been working on some dungeon scenery, which I'll upload as well. So you can. I'll upload some dungeon scenery. I'm just going to try and open some now so you can see what I'm talking about. The intention with this stuff is if you've got Photoshop or GIMP, you'll be able to, if I upload PNGs at some point, you'll be able to move the PNGs around your own dungeon floor map and build your own dungeons. So it's like a sprite sheet type situation. Excuse my extremely disorganised PC. Sprite sheet, here we go. So, things like this. These are other things that I've made that I'll be uploading to the Patreon. So you'll be able to just pop these down in your own dungeon grid. Add yourself a little table. Why not? Add yourself a wizard's desk. Dungeons have wizards, so I'm led to believe. Dungeons also have bookcases with extremely diverse contents, like books, playing cards. There's a little chopping board there, and an apple, because wizards got to eat. A little bit of wine, candelabra, scrolls. Wizards love scrolls. I don't know why this is all about wizards. We do love wizards. The map. A map of a world that looks strangely like ours, but without Europe. Coins, you know, because players love loot. Alchemical stuff, because players love blowing themselves up. So yeah, I'll upload this stuff as well to the Patreon. You can download that for free. And use it in your games if you so wish. So I think that's about it. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Like I said before, if you use any of this stuff, or you know, maybe you just want to chat, my Instagram's on here, just at Small Dungeon. I should be streaming again next Tuesday at 8 o'clock. That is the plan. Unless England have another game. But I don't think there is a game next Tuesday now. I think with Thursday, Friday, and then semis are... Maybe there will be one, but hopefully it won't be us. If it is, it'll be 8 o'clock on Wednesday. That's GMT, UTC. If you live in America or somewhere else, the internet will tell you what time that is. So yeah, thanks again. Thanks for stopping by, and you'll have a good one. Yeah, a real nice one from me.